Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Wealth Clock with Steven Weinstock. I've been investing in real estate for over 20 years. Started out with single family homes, moved on to multifamily properties, and I recently launched my own real estate fund. This podcast is brought to you by We Capital and the Goethals Capital Fund, where we buy properties in cash, we lock in deep discounts, eliminate the mortgage risk up front, and later on we refinance. This show is not about me. It's about operators, deal makers, strategists, and high performers who are building real results in real time. And today's guest is exactly that. Today, I'm sitting down with Avi Solomon. He recently got out of his bomb shelter. He's living in Israel, and he's the CEO of Pulse, a company helping real estate operators ditch the outdated PowerPoint and upgrade to something smarter. Avi is transforming how we pitch deals to investors using real-time, interactive, AI-powered pitch decks designed to actually engage capital allocators. His work is used by everyone from syndicators to institutional firms who are tired of 40-page PDFs that do not move the needle. Avi's background mixes tech, design, and psychology, and he's using it all to help sponsors raise capital with more clarity and confidence. Let's dive in. Avi, thank you for joining me. Are you in the bomb shelter as we speak?
No, but it's very kind of you to have me, Steven. I appreciate it. We spent a lot of the last few weeks in and around bomb shelters, but now, thanks to your wonderful president, we are currently living life large, enjoying life outside the bomb shelter.
I'm glad to hear. Just, I guess the audience, just tell us where in Israel. Are you near Gaza? Are you near Syria? Where are you?
I am in the holy city of Jerusalem. I am, thankfully, I would say, as far away from the danger zones as I possibly could be. But we still got our fair share of sirens. That was fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine how your sleep at night has been going on. Okay, Avi, let's start with this.
Yeah.
What was the moment or the deal that made you say the way we pitch real estate could be improved, or the way we pitch real estate deals is broken?
It's a really good question. Look, if I'm honest, it was really from day one. The moment that I saw an OM, and you said in the intro, 40 pages, I think that's kind. Most of these deals are 70 to 100 pages. I've seen 100 plus page OMs. And quite frankly, my job when I was an institutional capital raiser was made very difficult by these things. Had to present these vast, long presentations to investors. And even the most sophisticated of investors does not simply have the time to read through 100 pages worth of information. They don't. When I was an institutional capital raiser, because I was trying to get these investors to look through these very long presentations, and many of them just simply wouldn't. And my job in terms of trying to raise capital from them, get them interested, get them engaged in these deals, would have been made exceptionally smooth really from day one if they had the tool that I've now built, which essentially removes the need for these long booklets. And we instead of creating these booklets, we've created, I'm sure you'll get to this in terms of your questioning, but we've created user experiences that are far more engaging, far more uniquely designed for the investor engagement process. So I would say the story that I like to tell in terms of the moment that I knew that this system was like actually broken was when I had a deal, it was a $5 million raise or something like that. And I had essentially had to send this big book of information along with, by the way, the Excel sheets and the term sheets and all the different documents associated with the deal to an investor. Eventually that investor did get back to me. They said, oh, okay, we're interested in learning more about the deal. And so I had to go back to the GPs, to the general partnership and say, oh, this group is interested in your deal. Let's find a time to get both of you on the phone. And that whole back and forth ended up taking a couple of weeks. And I remember being on this call, probably 3 weeks after I had initially sent that document, and the investor pulls up the document, which was version 55 of whatever, the PDF. And the GPs go, "Oh, you don't have version 79 that we're up to?" And the investor, no. And the GP's like, "Oh my gosh, we've changed so much. So much has changed since then. I can't believe you haven't been looking at the most recent numbers." And of course, I'm sitting there embarrassed, because I hadn't received any of that information. Things just don't get updated live. And when you're dealing with this 50-page document that they've really dug through and looked at, and it is outdated information quickly, that was really the moment that I was like, enough is enough. It was probably a few months after that, I decided to quit my job and build this company. But that was one of the turning points, certainly, in this process.
When I started raising capital for my deals back in 2017-ish, I hired somebody to create this PDF. And I thought, okay, wow, this is great. It's got a picture of me. It gives a little bio. It's got all these numbers and Excels and copies of Excels all in the file. And I thought I could just send this out and I'm good to go. And over the course of that raise and future deals I was doing, I realized that I would send these out. And while it looked good, some people read every detail of it. And some people would respond saying, "Give me the highlights." And I found myself over time preparing almost like a template of deal points in my email itself, or even in my WhatsApp, if I were to send the PDF on WhatsApp, where it outlined certain key points. And I would start now adding a little sales pitch to that preview, so to speak, because I realized a lot of people, they want the pitch deck, they want this PDF because it makes you look official. And again, some people are reading it, but they also needed that little preview to really tell them, are they interested? Are they not interested? And it took a while for me to realize that. I've gone through that same debacle that you went through with the version 4, version 5. And, oh, you have the old one. Oh, I sent this to you back in January. Now we're talking in March, and we updated, we changed it. Becomes an awkward conversation. Why'd you change it?
Can I just define it? Because we have an internal kind of way of defining exactly what you just described with the points and people who want the kind of expanded information. It's what we like to call the detailed clarity paradox, which essentially is that when you're sending information to someone, they want two things at the same time. They want lots of detail, and they want to know that you've done serious research into the deal. You know what you're talking about. You can present tons of information, loads of data, loads of graphs, loads of text, loads of pictures. You can present everything in the world, and hence the 100-page presentations. And at exactly the same time, they don't want to read 100 pages worth of information. They just want highlights. And in the world of PDF or PowerPoint, there's no way of squaring that circle. You cannot present both lots of information and also small amounts of concise information. With the solution that we built, you can. I'm happy to go into what the solution looks like and what it feels like, but you've certainly identified one of the big pain points that every commercial real estate GP, as well as everyone in the private investing world who's pitching deals to investors, comes across all the time.
A lot of my audience is raising money for multifamily, value add, or small funds. When you say interactive decks, what exactly does that mean for people like us?
Wonderful question. And the answer essentially is, we're in the 21st century. Can I ask you a quick trivia question if you're willing? Do you know what year the PDF was invented?
Ooh, I'm going to say in the late 80s.
Okay. The answer is 1993, so you're in that point. The answer is 1993. And of course, communication, you think about where communication in general, technologically speaking, had come from the early 90s to now. There is nothing that we use that is from before the 10th century. Like nothing. Look around, look at your phone, look at your laptop, look at the microphone that you're using, at the fact that you and I are talking from thousands of miles away, face to face, and recording it in order to put on the internet so that people can watch and people can listen. We are light years ahead in terms of communication from where we were even 10 years ago, but certainly 30 plus years ago. So that's the thesis in terms of why there was an absolute need to reform and to change the technology and the tools that we're using in terms of these interactive decks. So what is an interactive deck? An interactive deck is a web-based communication device or presentation, although I don't love the word presentation, which essentially flows and looks and is laid out in a similar way to your typical PDF or PowerPoint presentation. However, it implements a whole bunch of different web-based tools. So from simple features like video and scroll throughs and the ability to click on buttons and to, I guess, reference back to what I was saying before about this detailed clarity paradox is we implement something that we call depth, right? Which means that within each slide or within each frame, we're able to present a lot of information that people can click through and explore. So we can utilize the idea of sliding or scrolling within a deck, within a slide, as well as having this concept of video, this concept of interactivity. So we'll include maps, we'll include different apps that you can use directly within the deck and within the slides themselves. So that's one aspect of an interactive deck. The other aspect of the interactive deck is that you can include, first of all, the fact that it's live, right, is huge. So that kind of gets back to the issues we were discussing before with the version 4 and the version 75. The information is constantly live. So as soon as we update the information on the back end and investors see that most up-to-date information, it's mobile friendly, right? I don't know if you've ever looked at a PDF on mobile. I'm sure you have. That's an exercise in mobile and motor skills, gymnastics in terms of zooming and zooming in, zooming out, as well as the fact that we can include essentially all information that could possibly be required within a deal into the deck in a very clean and clear way. So we can have data rooms directly within the deck, the various different documents and the term sheets, and you can have NDAs, all of that living within this deck. So in essence, it actually becomes a lot more than a deck. We call it an interactive deck only to describe what it looks and feels like, but it's actually not really a deck at all. It's a user experience, it's an investor experience of the deal, rather than just being one of the documents that you send over when you're presenting your deal. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. When I see the word interactive deck, the first thing that came to mind was a webinar. I've seen that before. I've seen others do it. I've wanted to do it for my deals in the past. I guess I was a little camera shy. I know that sounds weird from a guy who's hosting a video podcast, but a webinar definitely adds a personal touch to it. But you're saying it's beyond just the video, but it's actually allowing somebody who wants just the small tidbits, or they want that 80-page deck so they could click through, look at maps, or they could really just scroll through and finish the entire presentation within a minute or two. Let's say I buy property in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, multifamily properties there. If I'm raising $6 million for a 100-unit property in Kentucky, how would using a pitch deck from Pulse, from Avi Solomon, straight from the bunker, from the bomb shelter, how would that give me an edge in this process?
The short answer to that is that it would set you apart from everyone else and provide your investors an experience that they engage with. Now, the longer answer to that is that, think about it. If you're an investor and you have 10 deals that come your way, right? If you're a high net worth individual, or certainly if you're an institution, you're seeing deals on a very regular basis. You have to essentially filter out what deals you even want to look at before you look at them, right? Especially because the PDFs that you're seeing are 40, 50, 60 pages long, and you have no interest in looking through all of them. So maybe you'll look at the first couple of pages and you make a decision. So what you have to do as the GP is create something that is actually engaging. You have to create something that moves. You have to create something that is different. That is what we like to call this concept of something being shocking is not something that the commercial real estate industry is particularly good at, right? Because everything essentially looks the same. And you think as a general partner, you think, okay, if my IRR is better than the next guy's IRR, then they'll look at my deal as opposed to the next guy's. And that, of course, is just wrong. Because who says your IRR is actually going to end up being better? How much do I trust you? I have to find out the full story. So when you're presenting a deal, you're presenting much more than just a few figures and the location. What you're presenting is a thesis, right? Your thesis is, I'm going to be able to get you this level of returns. And then you have to back that up with evidence in all sorts of different forms. And the quicker that evidence into corroborating your thesis, that's when you've won an investor over. That's when an investor goes from potential to interested, which already is a difficult process in and of itself. And then, by the way, you're not done yet, because it is possible that an investor will be interested in, say, 3 or 4 of those 10 deals that they might have looked through. You have to convert interest into investment. And so what you need to do is create a very simple, what's known in the kind of marketing world as a call to action. And you have to create a seamless and smooth process for an investor to take their interest and immediately translate it into either a conversation with you. So what we'll do is we'll implement something like a calendar invite directly into the deck, or have a little survey saying, okay, are you interested in this, in a follow-up conversation? They just put their email in and you then do the follow-up pretty much immediately. Or they can just directly email you from within the deck. And that's, or best case scenario, they go straight to your investor portal directly from the deck, which can take them there directly and even potentially embed it into the deck itself and just put in the money right there. Right? So whereas most PDFs, they end with a little page that says, thank you so much. If you're interested, please reach out to us at info, whatever. That doesn't do it. That you might have an investor who has said to themselves, oh, okay, this is interesting. I'd love to learn more. They're not going to go back and find the email and say, okay, now I'm ready for a conversation. However, if there's a very seamless, very quick, one button call to action, they're much more likely to end up doing that, which is why the conversion rate on an interactive deck is significantly higher than that of a PDF.
I love that. Correct. Most people are not going back to page 63 and looking for the email address. Even if the email is highlighted where they can click it, they're still not going to go back. So giving them multiple options on how to proceed, multiple call to actions, as it's called. I was recently at a real estate conference, a real estate focused conference here in Manhattan last week. I guess it was a tech focused, a lot of AI. The name of the conference was something AI. And the consensus of the entire room was that the real estate industry is 5 or 10 years behind when it comes to tech. I got to speak and I was on stage over there and I was sitting next to some VC, some venture capitalist who invests in prop tech. There was some other guy who's some sort of data scientist. There was another guy who was an owner, a real estate owner, but he had 400 employees and owned like $1 billion worth of real estate. And then there was me. When it was my turn to talk, they asked me, why do I think that the real estate industry is 5 or 10 years behind? And the answer I gave apparently got a lot of applause or chatter in the room. And the answer I gave is that real estate, the business itself is very fragmented. It's not like soda where you have 5 companies and they run the 80% of the business, and then you have some small mom and pops. With real estate, you have, I would say, just stick with the 80-20 rule. You have big companies that are, let's say, 20% of all the real estate. And those companies are big corporate behemoths that have hundreds of employees, that have HR departments, and they could hire these young kids to implement AI into their organization. The rest of the real estate companies in the country, or maybe even the world, for example, you could have $100 million portfolio And that could be run with a 2-man team or a 3-man team.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times you have these companies that are built from the ground up. You're dealing with the company founders who have been through market cycles, market turns, ups and downs, and have weathered the storm. And they're obviously very successful in their own right. They're rich people. It's going to be very hard to tell these guys how to change, what to do, and force them to implement it. As opposed to a big company, yeah, you stick them in HR, you could automate those processes. And on stage, they asked me, so what AI am I using? And I said, I'm using ChatGPT. And they said, what are you doing with ChatGPT? I said, I'm using it to make my life easier. And they asked me for some examples. I said, for example, if I'm sending investor emails, I will use it for a first draft and then I'll tweak it and then maybe I'll run it through. But sometimes if someone sends me a PDF, I'll upload it to ChatGPT, ask it a few questions, and it'll spit out some info. Obviously, I always have to double check it. Even when I get a contract from a lawyer, I will upload it to ChatGPT, ask it a few questions, see if there's anything that sticks out just on my part. And there was one example I gave. I use a property management software, and this software's got like a million bells and whistles. And most of the bells and whistles I know nothing about. And in the old days, I would do a search on YouTube saying, does Yardi, which is the name of the property management software, does Yardi Breeze allow for electronic signatures on leases, for example? And I would have to go through 6 or 7 videos, even watch them, part of it, and then figure out either it could be done, it can't be done. Now I could go to ChatGPT, as long as I prompt it well, right? Prompt, that's the big word in AI. And
Sure
it will tell me, yes, your prop tech software could do this. Click this, click that, click this, and it gives me exact directions on how to do it. So I'm not using AI, and this is what I told the audience, I'm not using AI to transform my entire organization. I would love if AI could tell me, oh, you're in contract with this property, don't do it, but buy the one next door. I would love that, but I don't know how to use it for that. It's probably not realistic at this point, at least for a guy like me. But I am using AI to make my life a tad bit easier. Emails that used to be a hassle to write, just quick research. And little by little, I guess we'll catch up with the tech that's available out there. So that was my 2 cents that I gave to the crowds. And for the most part, again, we're all fragmented. You could have 2 guys, a guy who owns $100 million worth of real estate, and then the next block, another guy who owns $50 million worth of real estate. And they're not reliant on any major company or anything like that. So there's nothing pushing them to make that change.
Should I give what I would have said? I know that I'm not going to get a round of applause from the audience, but I give you a round of applause for that answer. I think it's exactly right. I wrote a post about this at some point, which went something along the lines of the real estate business is all about efficiency and organization. It's not about innovation, right? The name of the game in real estate is be as organized as possible in order to be able to buy something quickly, to be able to buy well and smartly, utilizing financial engineering and utilizing leverage and utilizing relationships. And that's the organization and efficiency business. And the best real estate operators are the people that are have their ducks in a row, ready to jump on opportunities. It's not about innovation. Real estate is not a game of innovation. And the funny thing is it's not just real estate, it's every private investing, everyone who is an investor, except maybe VCs who really have to spend their time deep in tech because they're investing in tech companies. But even VCs, like anyone who is an investor, the goal is to be organized. And the goal is to make sure that everyone has all the information they need, make sure that you have all the information you need, and make sure you jump as soon as it's on the horizon that things are coming, and jumping is the right move. And the funny thing is that the way that you lay out the fragmentation of the real estate industry is exactly why it's such a fun industry to be in from my perspective. Because you'll have, as you said, these companies that are $100 million companies, they own $100 million worth of real estate. There's 3 guys sitting in a back office all brilliant guys and like very with it in terms of what real estate cycles have and understand deal analysis brilliantly, but they don't know how to put together a presentation, and they certainly don't know how to utilize tools to maximize communication, optimize communication. And that's where we're able to come into these massive companies. We're dealing with companies that have billions and billions of dollars under management, and they've never put together, you look at the presentations they're putting together and the PDFs, you're like, how is anyone even investing in you? If I was a random doctor who knew nothing about real estate and was presented with a 90-page thesis on dissertation on this random deal in Louisville, Kentucky, I wouldn't know where to start. The only reason I'm investing in you is because you sound really smart and you sound like you know what you're doing and you have a track record. And that's great. But as soon as the next guy who has a better track record comes along, I'm just going to go with him. If you can master communication, and I think this is one of the real keys that we spotted, one of the real pain points we spotted in the real estate industry and beyond, is that if we can help general partners master communication and utilize, even we're not using ridiculous AI tools, we're using a little bit of AI, and we're using basic web concepts to significantly improve investor communication, your chances of success are much higher. Your ability to tell your story and actually build a narrative that, the random high net worth doctor, lawyer, dentist is going to engage with is going to go through the roof, and hopefully your platform and your company will follow suit.
Can you share a real world example where someone came to you in the middle of a raise? Hey, we're trying to raise money. It's not working. We have a deck that my nephew prepared for us. And I guess tell us if that's happened, what's happened, and if they came to you and used your company, what changed?
Yeah, it's give those kind of exact examples because I don't really stick around for the raise itself, but I'll tell you a couple of examples and you can take them or leave them. We had someone who had just fired his only employee. So this was a guy who also owned tens of millions, I think, in real estate. And it was him and someone else, and that person was his analyst and his apprentice and whatever. And he had just decided to part ways with him. He came to us scrambling. He had a raise that he was about to embark on. And he said, I need something that's really strong. And he raised, I think it was $10 million in 10 days. Utilizing, and look, it's very difficult to use the counterfactual because I don't know how long it would have taken him if he had not used us, but he claims that it was his quickest raise ever, and it was made so much easier because of the tech that we provided. We have a lot of people who have similar stories who were able to raise serious amounts of money extremely quickly. And they kind of scramble in the middle kind of story. It's hard because it takes us between 5 and 10 days to put together a deck. Most people who are really scrambling, we can do a bit faster, but we tend to not take on projects if they are just pure scrambles. We want this to be something that people go with from the outset with the knowledge that it is a much higher level, higher quality product rather than something that's going to save them in the middle of a race. That's not really the use case.
If a company comes to you, a small company comes to you and they say, okay, I saw this podcast. I want to hire you. I like your price. And they want all the bells and whistles. Do they have to implement any tech on their part? Do they have to get servers? Do they have to get automated? Do they have to get the call centers in India? Or could they just use their email and WhatsApp and all that to continue the process? Are you changing their life, meaning as far as what they need to implement this, or are you doing everything behind the scenes and it's seamlessly integrating into whatever they have going on?
I love how you phrased that question. And the answer is they change nothing. They change nothing. If anything, they do less, and their life is made significantly easier. What we provide is twofold. Because, and maybe I'll kind of expand this answer a little bit into kind of what we're talking about with AI. Our thesis within AI is that the best business model right now is something that we call reverse SaaS, which means so you've heard of SaaS, which is software as a service. We provide service as a software. What we recognized is that because AI makes individuals 5 to 10 times more productive and efficient, means that we can build something that would otherwise take months to build in a matter of days. 5 to 10 business days is generally our timeline. What we create for every single deck and every single individual is essentially its own piece of software. So what we're building, because of the power of AI and AI coding and AI copilots, we're able to build decks that are software, right? So instead of it being, as I say, software as a service, it's service as a software. So we provide a comprehensive service just like your regular pitch deck company would. So you provide us your raw information on your deal, you give us your underwriting, you give us some market analysis, you tell us about your team, and you tell us what you love about the deal. And that's it. You just dump that in our inbox, and we create what is essentially your own unique piece of software, which ends up being your interactive deck that is then yours and you're able to then share with your investors. The sharing process is exceptionally easy. It's just sharing a link, right? So it's even easier than sharing a PDF because it's never too big for an email. It doesn't take up any space in your memory or anything like that. And you get someone throughout the process. We assign you an account executive who is constantly available, and they're putting together your information. And it's a service at the end of which you get a software product. And I just think honestly, that's the future of AI, and I think it's the best business model within AI. And it makes everyone's life significantly easier rather than it being, there's no servers involved, there's no call centers in India or anything like that. Like you were saying, it's really as simple as we are a regular service and we provide you a software outcome.
You've worked with groups that pitch family offices, institutional firms. What are they looking for differently than a pitch deck that maybe a retail investor or a small investor might not care about?
It's a good question. So people like to differentiate between sophisticated and unsophisticated investor in exactly the way that you just laid it out. People assume that sophisticated investors are people who do investing for a living, professional investors, and unsophisticated investors are retail investors who don't know what they're talking about. And of course, it's a very poor binary to take. Everybody, I don't care if they're a professional investor or a professional dentist, believes that they're intelligent and sophisticated. And also, on the flip side, on the other side of that coin, everybody, investor or dentist, believes, well, I should say, doesn't want to read through pages and pages of information. So I don't accept the binary that is there are sophisticated investors, institutional investors, and retail or unsophisticated investors. I don't accept that binary. I think everybody wants a sophisticated product and wants a kind of quote unquote unsophisticated or simple way of absorbing the information. Now, there is a slight difference, I will give you that, between an institutional investor and a retail investor in the way that you have to communicate with them, which is simply the sophisticated investor needs to know that you have a lot of information and a lot of evidence backing you up and wants to see it quickly. The sophisticated investor also wants to know that you have a lot of evidence backing you up, but doesn't necessarily need to see it. They're happier to just know that it exists. But ultimately, because our interactive decks have this concept of click-through exploration, like I was describing before, where I'll paint the picture a little bit more clearly, and people, by the way, can check out our interactive decks. We have some samples on pulsecre.com, where we'll have bullet points, right? So a kind of executive summary that is in 3, 4, 5 bullet points. And then there's a little button that says read more. and one gives you a kind of 6 or 7 paragraph executive summary about all the ins and outs of the deal, right? So that solves for your sophisticated, unsophisticated thing, which again isn't really sophisticated, unsophisticated. It's everyone wants to read bullet points and wants to know that you have evidence to back it up. And in the same way, you can do that with much more in-depth things. So you can have graphs that indicate that the rents in your area are going to go up. And then you could have an entire article or CoStar report available and accessible immediately afterwards to back up all that information or to back up that thesis, which again, everyone wants an easy way of consuming information and to know that the evidence is there to corroborate your initial proposal.
I'm going to ask you some more questions. We're coming to the end.
Good.
What would you say to a syndicator who's used to raising, check sizes in the amount of $100,000, and now he wants to go after larger $2 million checks? What has to change in the materials and the messaging that they're providing?
It's a good question. I genuinely don't think there's much difference. I think it is, and most real estate moguls will tell you this, the amount of effort that it takes to raise 100K and the amount of effort it takes to raise 100M is
The same.
Yes, there are more phone calls involved, but ultimately it's just a few more zeros you have to put at the end of checks. Personally, it requires you have to be sharp wherever you are in the industry. You might tell me, okay, 100K I can get from just knocking on my uncle's door. Okay, fine. As soon as you get past like very close friends and family, you need to be sharp. You need to be on your game. You need to be communicating with very high level materials. You need to know what your pitch is, what your narrative is, what your story is. It doesn't really matter if you're doing $1 million or 100 million. Maybe you might say the price tag for putting together high-end materials makes a bit more sense if you're raising more money. Okay, fair enough. But ultimately, you have to be a really sharp communicator, regardless.
You only get a few minutes sometimes to make a first impression. What's one thing that signals credibility right away in a deck or a pitch from your experience?
You only get about 20 seconds. That's the number that we work based off of. And the very short answer to that is movement. People, and this is it's something we're able to integrate into interactive decks. If you have movement immediately, people immediately are drawn to, that's just the way the brain works. We love movement. We love something that feels like it's alive. And if you can make your deal alive, you're in a very good place. There's a lot more to answer there, but I'm trying to keep it to one sentence.
Thank you. The last one, let's fast forward 3 to 5 years. What does the future of capital raising communication look like? Are pitch decks still around, or do we evolve into something else entirely? Where do you think we are?
I'd like to think that everyone will be using an interactive deck. I very much hope that Pulse is the front runner in that industry, but I think it's obvious that everyone's going to be using interactive forms of communication that are platform, web-based, interesting, and 21st century.
Avi, tell our audience a little about you, where they can reach you, whatever you want. Now's your chance.
So I definitely encourage everyone to follow me on LinkedIn or even connect with me on LinkedIn. Avi Solomon, I'm the one that looks like this, CEO of Pulse. Definitely check out our website. Our website is pulsecre.com and book a time. My Calendly is on the website. People can book a time directly with me. That probably will change relatively soon as we build out our team and engagement, and my calendar gets more and more booked up. So for now, you can still access me directly. Soon enough, I'll be a member of our team. Get on.
Avi, this was awesome. I think a lot of real estate operators and capital raisers listening are going to rethink how they're telling their story after hearing this. You're not just
100%.
Upgrading slide decks and pitch decks. You're helping people communicate better, build trust faster, and actually get deals done in a way that works for both sides. Thanks for joining me. And for everyone listening, if you found this helpful, make sure to follow The Wealth Clock with Steven Weinstock. New episodes drop every week where we sit down with operators, company founders, closers, deal makers making real moves in real time. See you next week.
Thank you.